All right, our second example we're going to do for split method is 6x squared equals 11x minus 4. So step one, make sure that it's in standard form, which this one is not because I've got the 11x and the minus 4 on the wrong side of the equation. So to move it, again, you would just do the opposite operation. So I would subtract the 11x and I would add the 4. So what I'll end up with is 6x squared minus 11x plus 4 equals 0. All right, next step is going to be to look for a GCF. So I've got 6, negative 11, and 4. So this problem doesn't have a GCF, so I can just skip that step. So now I would move to my x. So we're always going to put a times c up top and b in the bottom. So for this problem, a is 6, b is negative 11, and c is positive 4. So 6 times 4 would be 24, and then negative 11 would be at the bottom. Okay, so now we need to come up with our two numbers. So again, this can be challenging. I want to find two numbers that multiply to be 24 and add to be negative 11. So for some of you guys, you might want to just think of what are the factors of 24. I could use 6 and 4. I could use 12 and 2. But 6 and 4 would only give me 10. 12 and 2 would give me 14. I could also use 8 and 3. And this one would work. So negative 8 plus a negative 3 would equal negative 11. All right, so now the next step is to take our middle term, so take b, which is negative 11x, and I'm going to replace it with the two values that I just found. Okay, so I'm going to have 6x squared, and now instead of minus 11x, I'll replace it with both of these. So minus 8x minus 3x plus 4 equals 0. Now you might be wondering whether or not it has to go in this order. Could I put the negative 3x first and the negative 8x second? Sure. You're going to end up with work that looks a little bit different from mine, but your end result and your factored form and your solutions will all be correct. Okay, so now I want to look for a GCF between my first two terms and my second two terms. So with my first two terms, these would have 2x in common. And with my second two terms, they don't have a GCF, but I have to take something out. So I could just take out a 1. And for this scenario, since my number that's out front, the negative 3, is negative, I will need to take out a negative 1. And that's kind of just a little hint, is that this will always have the sign of this number. But the 4 is also going to need to be negative to match the 8 once I take the GCF out. So now the 2x would go out front, and when I divide by 2x, I'll get 3x minus 4. So again, now you can see when I take out the negative 1, if I had only taken out a positive 1, I would still be left with a negative 3x plus 4. And then what was in the parentheses wouldn't match. So by taking out a negative 1, I'm changing the sign, so now it will be 3x minus 4 equals 0. Okay, so the last step now is to take out my GCF again, which would just be whatever is in parentheses. So that's my first factor, and then when they cancel out, I would be left with 2x minus 1 equals 0. Okay, so that is the factored form for this equation. Now for the very last step, I just need to find the solution. So I would take 3x minus 4 and set it equal to 0, and take 2x minus 1 and set it equal to 0. So here I could add 4, 3x equals 4, and then divide both sides by 3. So x equals 4 over 3. Then for the second equation, I can add 1, 2x equals 1, and then divide both sides by 2 to get x equals 1/2. So x equals 4/3 and x equals 1/2 would be my two solutions.